Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be reading from this book called On This Day, A History of the World in 366 Days. And today we will be looking at the month of December, which means that it's the last time we're going to look through this book. I'm glad that many of you have enjoyed this series on my channel. And if you have a December birthday, leave a comment down below what your favorite historical event is on your birthday. Let's get into it with December. I forgot my pencil. One second. I'll just grab this one. I have this pencil on standby. We'll just use this one. Starting with December 1st. 1955. Bold boycott. Black American activist Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white passenger and was arrested. Her protest led to the Montgomery bus boycott and the ban of racial segregation on U.S. public buses. 1988. HIV awareness. World AIDS Day was first established on this day to raise awareness of the millions of people living with HIV around the world. People wear a red ribbon on World AIDS Day each year to show their support. 1920, straight off the line. The world's first moving assembly line in the car industry was introduced by U.S. entrepreneur Henry Ford. This improvement slashed the time taken to make each Model T, so they became cheaper to produce and therefore more affordable to ordinary families. Also on this day in 1640, the House of Braganza came into power in Portugal, ending the Iberian Union and 60 years of rule by the Spanish crown. 1959, 12 countries signed the Antarctic Treaty, which banned military activity on the continent. And in 1990, workers met midway under the English Channel as they dug the Channel Tunnel, which links the United Kingdom to France. And born this day in 1761, Madame Tussaud, French artist. She made lifelike wax sculptures of famous people and founded her own museum in 1835. Next is December 2nd, 1988, female leader. Pakistani politician Benazir Bhutto was sworn in as the Prime Minister of Pakistan. She was the first woman to lead the country and served for 5 years over 2 terms. 2017, space pizza. One of the world's favorite dishes finally reached orbit as astronauts in the International Space Station held a pizza party in space. The crew threw pizzas around in zero gravity before eating them. And in 1805, the Battle of Austerlitz. One of French General Napoleon's greatest victories occurred at Austerlitz in modern-day Czechia. His army of 68,000 French troops managed to defeat the opposing 90,000 Austrian and Russian soldiers. Also on this day in 1766, the Swedish Parliament passed a law that guaranteed freedom of speech, making Sweden the first country in the world to do so. In 1959, a film enhanced by aromas piped into the cinema behind the Great Wall was shown for the first time. It was the first movie to use smells as part of the experience. And born this day in 1898, Indra Lal Roy, Indian aviator. An ace flyer, he was the only Indian pilot to see combat in World War I. And in 1946, Gianni Versace, Italian fashion designer. He founded the successful Versace fashion house. Next is December 3rd, 1967, heart transplant. South African surgeon Christian Barnard and his team performed the first successful human-to-human heart transplant at the University of Cape Town, South Africa. In 2001, scooting around. The Segway human transporter, often called the Segway scooter, was unveiled by U.S. inventor Dean Kamen. The original model could reach speeds of 8 miles per hour. In 1926, vanished. British crime author Agatha Christie mysteriously disappeared from her home. A huge police search failed to locate her, but she reappeared 11 days later at a hotel. Christie said that she could not remember what had happened, and the mystery still unsolved. Also on this day in 1689, the first successful surgery to separate conjoined twins finished in Basel, Switzerland. The surgery took 9 days. In 1992, the first International Day of Persons with Disabilities was held by the United Nations. And in 1992, Neil Papworth, a British software whiz, sent the first text message. And born this day in 1895, Anna Freud, Austrian psychoanalyst. She started the field of child psychoanalysis, using therapy to understand the minds of children. And in 1985, Amanda Seyfried, U.S. actor. She starred in Mean Girls, Mamma Mia, and voiced the role of Daphne in Scoob. Next is December 4th, 2012, early dinosaur. The Nyasasaurus fossil from Tanzania was dated at 245 million years old, making it the earliest known dinosaur by at least 10 million years. The fossil had been kept at London's Natural History Museum since the 1950s. 1872 Ghost Ship. A mysteriously abandoned U.S. ship, the Mary Celeste, was found drifting in the Atlantic Ocean. Hi, kitten. There was no sign of its crew on board, and they were never seen again. Theories explaining their disappearance range from underwater earthquakes to giant squid, or a sad kitten that wants little pets. Hold on, kitten. Okay. I gave him some pets. He's probably going to jump up here in a second. Expect that. In 1894, Parker pen. U.S. inventor George Parker received a patent for his fountain pen with the unique Lucky Curve design, which fixed the problem of leaking ink. This was the first success for his Parker Pen Company. Also on this day, in 1676, the Battle of Lund was a bloody conflict fought between the Swedish army and Danish invaders. In 1917, British psychiatrist W. H. Rivers presented his report on soldiers suffering the effects of shell shock after serving in World War I. And in 2019, a study found climate change to be the reason for North American birds becoming smaller over time. Born this day in 1973, Tyra Banks, Black American supermodel. The first black woman to be featured on the cover of GQ magazine. She has been the face of many fashion and cosmetics campaigns and has hosted her own TV talk show. My poor cat is really sad that I'm not playing with him right now. I promise, kitten, I will play with you after this. I promise. He's really sad. Again, he's probably about to jump up here. But we're going to move on to December 5th. 1935. Empowering Black Women. The National Council for Negro Women was founded by Black American activist Mary McLeod Bethune to improve the lives of Black women in the U.S. 1757, the Battle of Leuthen. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Part of the 7 Years' War, the Battle of Leuthen saw King Frederick II of Prussia expand his empire by defeating a larger Austrian force. In 1952, lethal smog. The Great Smog of London filled the city's air with pollution. mainly from burning coal. The foul smog lingered for 4 days, leading to the deaths of thousands. To prevent future smogs, the UK government introduced the Clean Air Act of 1956. Also on this day in 1945, Flight 19, a group of 5 U.S. military planes, went missing over the Bermuda Triangle, an area in the Atlantic Ocean known for the disappearance of aircraft and ships. In 1955, the Montgomery bus boycott started in Alabama when Black Americans refused to travel by bus in protest against racial segregation on public transportation. Born this day in 1901, Walt Disney, U.S. animator and entrepreneur. He co-founded the Walt Disney Company and created many beloved cartoon characters such as Mickey Mouse. In 1916, Hillary Koprowski, Polish-American scientist, he developed the world's first polio vaccine that could be taken orally. Oh, I didn't know such a thing existed. That's neat. Moving on to December 6th. 343 CE, Saint Nicholas. The patron saint of children and sailors, Saint Nicholas is believed to have died on this day. Christians celebrate this annual date as Saint Nicholas Day. 1913, Finding Nefertiti. More than 3,000 years after it was created, a bust of the Egyptian Queen Nefertiti was found by German archaeologist Ludwig Borchardt in the city of Amarna, Egypt. It was buried under rubble at the site of the ancient workshop of the royal sculptor Thutmose. In 1892, Nutcracker premiere. The first performance of the ballet, The Nutcracker. My kitten's trying to jump up. 1 second. The first performance of the ballet, The Nutcracker, created by Russian composer Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. He's digging his claws into my leg. Ouch. Let's try that again. The first performance of the ballet, The Nutcracker, created by Russian composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, was held in St. Petersburg, Russia. The fairy tale story was based on German author E.T.A. Hoffmann's classic Christmas story for children. He's really not having it. Okay. Also on this day in 1884, construction of the Washington Monument was completed. It was built to honor George Washington, the first president of the United States. In 1921, the Anglo-Irish Treaty was signed by the British government and Irish leaders to end the Irish War of Independence. It led to the establishment of the Irish Free State a year later. In 2017, the discovery of the most distant supermassive black hole ever recorded, with a mass 800 million times greater than the Sun, was reported in the journal Nature. Born this day in 1977, Andrew Flintoff, British cricketer. A great player of the game, he won an MBE from Queen Elizabeth II for his services to cricket before retiring to become a television personality. Let me give him a few more pets. No, he wants to go run around. Of course he does. Once I'm trying to film a quiet video, he wants to be loud and crazy. Well, okay. He found one of his toys in the corner. That'll occupy him. Moving on to December 7th. 1972, Blue Marble. While flying to the moon, the Apollo 17 crew took a picture of Earth from 18,000 miles away. Called the Blue Marble, this photograph was shared around the world. 2019, Quadruple Flip First. At the ISU Grand Prix of Figure Skating final in Italy, teenage Russian figure skater Alexandra Trusova performed the first ever quadruple flip jump by a female athlete in a figure skating competition. In 1941, Pearl Harbor. Without warning, Japanese military aircraft bombed the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, killing at least 2,000 people. The next day, the U.S. declared war on Japan, entering World War II. Also on this day in 1835, the first steam railroad in Germany, the Bavarian Ludwig Railway, opened. 1909, the first synthetic plastic, named Bakelite, was patented by Belgian chemist Leo Baekeland. It was advertised as the material of 1,000 uses. To 1998, at the age of 17, German-Australian navigator Jesse Martin set sail on his solo trip around the globe and set a new world record 11 months later as the youngest person to do so. Let me finish this. I have an idea to occupy my cat. Born this day in 1942, Reginald F. Lewis, black American entrepreneur. He set up a food company that grew into a billion-dollar business, making him the first black American to achieve this feat. I'm gonna go fill his food bowl with his favorite food. That'll distract him. He's gonna jump. He's gonna jump. He's gonna jump. Nope. Okay. I'm gonna go feed him real quick. Okay. Hopefully that will occupy him for a minute. Let's continue. Hopefully there'll be no more little cat whining in the background. Next is December 8th. 2013 Antarctic concert with a show called Freeze 'Em All in Antarctica. U.S. heavy metal band Metallica became the first band to play a concert on all 7 continents. Because of Antarctica's fragile ecosystem, the sound was transferred from amplifiers directly to headphones worn by the crowd. Look at these penguins. 1881 Electric iron. U.S. inventor Henry W. Seeley applied for a patent for the first electric iron. This early device used electricity to generate a constant amount of heat, which was a huge improvement on irons heated on a stove. To 2020, measuring Everest. The height of Mount Everest was officially updated to 29,031.69 feet. Nice. Following a survey conducted by researchers in Nepal and China, countries which share a border that passes over the mountain. Also on this day in 1987, at a summit in Washington, D.C., Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev and U.S. President Ronald Reagan agreed to cut down on their nuclear weapons, signaling a thawing of the Cold War. In 2010, with the successful Dragon mission, SpaceX became the first private company to launch a spacecraft into Earth's orbit and then recover it. And in 2020, also, 90-year-old Margaret Keenan from Coventry, UK, became the first person to receive the COVID-19 vaccine outside clinical trials. And born this day in 1935, Dharmendra, Indian actor and film producer. A popular actor in Bollywood, he has starred in more than 300 films. Wow. Next is December 9th, 1940, infantry tanks. During World War II, the North African campaign of the Allied forces opened with shots fired by British infantry tanks called Matilda II. Although slow-moving, these tanks were heavily armored, protecting the infantry. 1955, Euro flag. The flag of Europe was adopted by the Council of Europe. It features a dark blue background with a circle of 12 golden stars at the center, symbolizing the union of the European nations. In 1824, the Battle of Ayacucho. During Peru's War of Independence, military general Antonio José de Sucre led an army of rebels to victory against Spanish forces, effectively ending Spanish rule in the country. Also on this day in 1979, the World Health Organization declared the eradication of the deadly smallpox virus. In 1992, during the Somalian Civil War, the UN launched an international mission called Operation Restore Hope to rescue Somalian civilians from hunger and violence. And born this day in 1934, Judi Dench, British actor. She started out as a theater actor in 1957 and went on to star in a wide range of films. She's well known for playing the character M in the James Bond series. Next is December 10th, 1911, double winner. Polish physicist Marie Curie received her second Nobel Prize for discovering the elements radium and polonium, following her win for her research on radiation in 1903. This historic double win made her the first person to be awarded Nobel Prizes in different categories. And 10 years earlier, in 1901, we have the Nobel Prize. To recognize outstanding achievements in chemistry, literature, medicine, peace, and physics, the first set of Nobel Prizes was given out. This fulfilled the last wishes of celebrated chemist Alfred Nobel and took place on the 5th anniversary of his death. In 1868, traffic lights. The world's first traffic lights are introduced outside the Palace of Westminster in London, UK. They made use of an adapted railroad signal system with semaphore arms and red and green gas lamps to indicate stop and move with caution for horse carriages and pedestrians. Also on this day in 1823, British paleontologist Mary Anning discovered the first complete skeleton of a plesiosaurus, a prehistoric marine reptile, in the cliffs of Lyme Regis in Dorset, England. In 1996, South African President Nelson Mandela signed the country's new constitution into effect, confirming that South Africa is now a democracy. And born this day in 1815, Ada Lovelace, British mathematician. She worked on algorithms for an early computing machine and is considered the world's first computer programmer. Next is December 11th, 1964, Revolutionaries' Speech. After leading the Cuban Revolution, Che Guevara gave a speech at the United Nations General Assembly in New York City. He called on the United States to end its interference in Cuban affairs and to return occupied land. 1910 Neon Lamp. The world's first neon lamp was presented to the public by French engineer Georges Claude at an exhibition in Paris, France. His glass tubes of neon gas gave off a glow similar to light bulbs. In 2019, prehistoric art. Dated at nearly 44,000 years old, cave paintings found in Sulawesi, Indonesia, were reported by science journal Nature to be the earliest examples of rock art showing animals and humans. Also on this day in 1941, during World War II, Germany and Italy sided with Japan and declared war on the U.S. In 1946, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, or UNICEF, was set up by the UN after World War II to help vulnerable children in Europe and China. And in 1997, the Kyoto Protocol was signed in Kyoto, Japan, with many countries agreeing to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Born this day in 1843, Robert Koch, German physician. He discovered the bacteria that cause tuberculosis and cholera, winning a Nobel Prize for his work. And in 1911, Qian Shuisen, Chinese scientist. He made advances in aerodynamics that helped develop China's missile and space programs. Next is December 12th. In 2001, new national park, Pon Nak Bang Nature Reserve in northern Vietnam was declared a national park to better protect the variety of rare animals and plants living there. The enormous park contains 300 caves, including the world's largest. In 2015, votes for women. For the first time, Saudi Arabian women took to the polls after they were granted the right to vote in local elections. They could run as candidates too. Saudi Arabia is the latest country to give women the vote. Also on this day, in 1901, Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi claimed to have sent the first radio transmission across the Atlantic Ocean. In 1913, Leonardo da Vinci's painting Mona Lisa was found in an Italian hotel 2 years after it was stolen from the Louvre Museum in France. And in 2015, the Paris Agreement, which set out goals to limit global warming to less than 2 degrees Celsius, was adopted by 196 countries. And born this day in 1915, Frank Sinatra, U.S. singer and actor. He sold more than 150 million albums and starred in a number of successful films. Next is December 13th, 2017, Acrobats on Ice. The world-famous Cirque du Soleil performed its first circus show on ice, Crystal. Acrobats and ice skaters wowed the audience with their fearless stunts. 2000, plant DNA. Scientists decoded the first plant genome, which is a set of genetic instructions, for a species known as, Arabidopsis thaliana. This achievement made it possible to study which genes affect how a plant fights disease or survives with little water. 2013, snow in Egypt. Egypt's capital city, Cairo, saw snow for the first time in 112 years as Storm Alexa battered countries in the Middle East with heavy snowfall and freezing temperatures. Also on this day in 1545, at the Council of Trent, a group of Catholic bishops first met in Italy to discuss ways to reform the Catholic Church. This was in response to the rise of Protestantism, an alternative way to practice Christianity. In 1939, World War II's first naval battle, the Battle of the River Plata, saw Germany fight the UK and New Zealand in the South Atlantic. It was a decisive victory for the Allies. And born this day, in 1925, Dick Van Dyke, U.S. actor and dancer. His 70-year career includes hits such as Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And in 1967, Jamie Foxx, Black American actor and musician. His movies include The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Ray. With 4 music albums to his name, he's also a Grammy winner. Next is December 14th, 1812, Retreat in the Cold. The French invasion of Russia, led by Napoleon Bonaparte, ended after almost 6 months, with the last of the French forces leaving the country. The French were not prepared for the brutal Russian winter and left defeated. In 1977, Saturday Night Fever. The world premiere of Saturday Night Fever took place in Los Angeles. The film's dance sequences made a star of young actor John Travolta. In 1911, the South Pole. In the race to reach the South Pole and Antarctica, Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen and his team were victorious, planting their country's flag in celebration on arrival. They reached the pole 33 days before the British expedition led by Robert Falcon Scott. Also on this day in 1962, NASA's robotic probe Mariner 2 became the first spacecraft to fly by Venus. In 1985, Wilma Mankiller was sworn in as the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. She was the first woman to lead a major indigenous American tribe. In 1994, work began on the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze River in China. It harnesses hydroelectric power from the river and is now the world's largest power station. Born this day in 1918, BKS Iyengar, Indian yoga instructor. He introduced a version of yoga that focused on precision and alignment in postures. Next is December 15th, 2009, clever octopus. Scientists in Indonesia reported seeing a faint octopus picking up coconut shells from the ocean bed and fitting them together to build a hideaway home. This was the first known example of an invertebrate using tools in nature. Invertebrate's an animal with no backbone. 1903, ice cream cups. Italian food vendor Italo Marchioni received the patent for his ice cream cup machine, a molding kit that created small pastry cups with handles for holding the sweet treat. To 1989, Mount Redoubt. Ash from volcanic clouds spewed forth by the eruption of Mount Redoubt in Alaska caused an aircraft's engines to fail. The plane landed safely, but as a result of this event, the Alaska Volcano Observatory began closely monitoring volcanic activity in the region. Also on this day, in 1612, German astronomer Simon Marius was the first to use a telescope to view the Andromeda Galaxy. Marius thought he was looking at a cloud of dust and gas within our own galaxy. In 1929, Swiss pilot Walter Mittelhauser became the first to fly over Mount Kilimanjaro, the tallest mountain in Africa. And in 2011, the 7-year Iraq War ended when the U.S. announced the completion of its military mission in Iraq. Born this day in 37 CE, Nero, Roman Emperor, a cruel and ruthless ruler, he was rumored to have caused the Great Fire of Rome, which left 2/3 of the city in ashes. And in 1832, Gustave Eiffel, French engineer, his most famous design is the Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. Alright, I just checked on my kitten. He's settling back down now that he has a full tummy. I guess that satisfied him. Sorry if the meowing in the background distracted you. He should be done now. Next is December 16th. In 755, Chinese uprising. During the Chinese Tang Dynasty, rebellious military officer An Lushan staged a revolt against Chancellor Yang Guozhong. This caused an uprising that spread throughout China and left the ruling Tang Dynasty weakened and in turmoil. 1773, the Boston Tea Party. Angry at having to pay taxes to the British Parliament, U.S. colonists protested by climbing aboard British ships in Boston Harbor and dropping about 300 chests filled with tea leaves into the water. This event became known as the Boston Tea Party. Also on this day, in 1707, Mount Fuji in Japan erupted, throwing volcanic rock and ash all over the city of Edo, which is Tokyo today, 62 miles away. Wow. In 1850, British ships and settlers arrived in New Zealand after the Canterbury Association in the UK decided to establish a colony there. And in 1944, the Battle of the Bulge began when Germany launched its final major attack of World War II in the Ardennes, Belgium. Born this day in 1932, Quentin Blake, British artist, he created instantly recognizable illustrations for more than 300 books, including those by children's author Roald Dahl. Next is December 17th, 1903, Wright Flight. U.S. engineer Orville Wright piloted the first powered heavier-than-air flight, lasting 12 seconds and covering 120 feet. Orville and his brother Wilbur continued testing the aircraft throughout the day. In 1790, Sunstone. Commissioned by 15th century Aztec ruler Axayacatl, The sunstone was rediscovered during renovations at Mexico City Cathedral. It had gone missing when Spain conquered the Aztec Empire. And in 1886, bike trip. In the city of Yokohama, Japan, British cyclist Thomas Stevens completed his round-the-world trip on a penny farthing, making history as the first person to travel the globe by bicycle. Born this day in 1945, Jacqueline Wilson, British author. She has written more than 100 children's books, often about young people experiencing big or challenging life events. And in 1973, Paula Radcliffe, British runner. She won the New York and London marathons 3 times each, and was the world's fastest female marathon runner for 16 years. I almost skipped the also on this day. Also on this day in 1892, the first issue of weekly newspaper Vogue was published. It later became an iconic fashion magazine. In 1989, the famous family of Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie was introduced on U.S. television in the first full episode of the cartoon The Simpsons. In 2019, in Denmark, DNA taken from birch tar, which was used as chewing gum in ancient times, revealed details about a young female hunter-gatherer from 5,700 years ago. Wow. Next is December 18th, 1941, Heroic Tigers. Made up of former U.S. Army pilots, the Flying Tigers engaged in combat for the first time in their distinctive aircraft. They were victorious in defending China against Japanese troops during World War II. In 2000, a step for migrants. To raise awareness of migration, the first International Migrants' Day was recognized by the UN General Assembly. Millions of people around the world choose to migrate, while others are forced to migrate due to war or persecution. 1999, Tree Dweller. U.S. activist Julia Butterfly Hill ended her protest against the extensive logging of California redwood trees. She had spent 738 days living in one of the trees, which she named Luna. Also on this day, in 1865, the 13th Amendment was formally adopted, abolishing slavery in the U.S. In 1898, French racing car driver Gaston de Chasseloup-Lobat achieved the first land speed record at 39, that's a decimal, right? Not a comma. Okay, 39.245 miles per hour. I was about to say, if he went 39,000 miles per hour, I don't think that's possible, especially in 1898. 1974, soldier Teruo Nakamura of the Imperial Japanese Army was discovered hiding on the Indonesian island of Morotai, unaware that World War II had ended 29 years earlier. That could be a movie. Speaking of movies, born this day in 1946, Steven Spielberg, U.S. director. He's directed many acclaimed films such as Jurassic Park and E.T. the Extraterrestrial, 2 of my favorites. 1980, Christina Aguilera, U.S. singer. Known for her 4-octave vocal range, she sold more than 75 million records worldwide. Next is December 19th, 1974, Mini Computer. A pioneering do-it-yourself computer kit went on sale for the first time. The Altair 8800, produced by U.S. company MITS, came with 256 bytes of memory, enough to store 1 sentence of text. In 2019, heating up. Australia declared a state of national emergency as firefighters battled against nearly 100 bushfires. Caused by a record-breaking heat wave and extreme wind conditions, the raging fire spread from regions in South Australia to the east of the country. In 2018, drone delivery. A baby on an island in Vanuatu became the first to receive a vaccine delivered by a drone. This was part of the UNICEF charity's aim to immunize people living in remote communities. Also on this day in 1843, the classic Christmas ghost story of redemption, A Christmas Carol by British author Charles Dickens, was published. In 1958, U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent a message into orbit. His voice became the first ever to be transmitted into space. And 1983, the original soccer FIFA World Cup trophy, known as the Jules Rimet Trophy, was stolen in Brazil, and it's never been recovered. Oh my gosh. Born this day in 1875, Carter G. Woodson, Black American historian. In 1926, he launched the celebration of Negro History Week, which helped inspire Black History Month. Next is December 20th, 1573, Spy Master. English diplomat Sir Francis Walsingham became Queen Elizabeth I's principal secretary. Using spies and secret agents, he protected the Protestant monarch from several Catholic plots and executed her main rival, Mary, Queen of Scots. It rhymed. 1812, Grimm Tales. German brothers Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm published their first volume of popular folk tales, children's and household tales, later known as Grimm's Fairy Tales. 2015, Rowing Feet. A crew of disabled military personnel set off across the Atlantic Ocean to become the first physically disabled team of 4 to row any ocean. It took them 46 days, 6 hours, and 49 minutes in their boat Invictus. Also on this day in 1860, the U.S. state of South Carolina broke away from the Union, which contributed to the outbreak of the U.S. Civil War. In 1951, the EBR-1 in Idaho became the first nuclear power plant in the world to generate electricity. The power it produced lit 4 light bulbs. Wow. In 1999, Macau was handed over to China by Portugal, ending almost 600 years of colonial control. Born this day is Jeremy Sorelli Njitap Fotso, Cameroonian soccer player. He was famous for his ability to play in a number of different positions on the field. It's hard to do. Next is December 21st, 1913, the first crossword. The world's first modern crossword by British-American journalist Arthur Wynne was published in the New York World newspaper, although the idea can be traced back to ancient Rome. In 1968, liftoff. Apollo 8 was launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It was the first crewed spacecraft to leave Earth's orbit and to reach another celestial object, the Moon, which it orbited 10 times. In 2012, Maya Doomsday. The end of a cycle of the Maya calendar led to predictions that the world would end on this date, although scholars have never found evidence that the ancient Mayans actually believed this. Also on this day in 1848, Ellen and William Craft escaped enslavement by daringly disguising themselves as a white man traveling with his servant. In 1988, a bomb exploded on board Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing 270 people, the UK's deadliest air disaster. And in 2020, Saturn and Jupiter appeared in a great conjunction, the closest they had been when viewed from Earth since 1623. Born this day in 1914, Frank Fenner, Australian scientist. He helped eradicate smallpox and control Australia's rabbit plagues. And in 1948, Samuel L. Jackson, Black American actor and producer. His movies have made more than $27 billion worldwide. What a king. Next is December 22nd, 1891. It's a ripoff. U.S. inventor Seth Wheeler became the first person to sell perforated toilet paper in the U.S. Though toilet paper was not new, his design allowed the user to easily tear off sheets. 1882, Christmas lights. Edward H. Johnson, a U.S. inventor, was the first person to use electric lights to decorate a Christmas tree. Before this, wax candles were used, which could be very dangerous. And in 1989, the Brandenburg Gate reopens. Closed for almost 30 years, the Brandenburg Gate reopened in Berlin, Germany. The landmark had become a symbol of the division of both the city and the country after World War II. Its reopening signaled the end of the Cold War, and Germany reunited a year later. Also on this day in 1788, Quang Trung proclaimed himself Emperor of Vietnam. In 1938, a coelacanth, a fish believed to have been extinct for 66 million years, was found in South Africa. And in 1971, Doctors Without Borders was founded. This humanitarian medical organization works globally to provide health care, particularly in regions with war and disease. Born this day in 1960 is Jean-Michel Basquiat, Black American artist. He mixed graffiti and painting to make unique artworks. And in 1962, Ralph Fiennes, British actor, he played the role of Voldemort in the Harry Potter movies. Next is December 23rd, 1897, Noche de Rábanos. The first Noche de Rábanos, or Night of the Radishes, was held in Oaxaca, Mexico, to draw attention to the city's Christmas market. These days, revelers celebrate by carving radishes into figures and placing them together in scenes. It's so cute. Even though I'm allergic to radishes. 1583, Maya Queen. Yul Iknal was crowned ruler of Palenque, a Maya city-state in modern-day Chiapas, Mexico. She was the first and one of the only female rulers that we know about in Maya history. And in 1997, Hanukkah in Vatican City. A menorah, a symbol of the Jewish religion and the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah, was lit in celebration for the first time in Vatican City, the center of the Catholic Christian faith. Also on this day in 1952, Alain Bombard, a French biologist, completed a solo voyage across the Atlantic Ocean with no supplies of food or drink. Wow, that's incredible. 1970, the World Trade Center North Tower was finished. At 1,368 feet, it was the tallest building in the world at that time. And in 2007, Nepal became a federal republic, abolishing its monarchy. And born this day in 1867, Sarah Breedlove, Black American entrepreneur. Also known as Madam C.J. Walker, she was the first self-made female millionaire. Next is December 24th, 1818, Silent Night. Joseph Moore and Franz Xaver Gruber gave the first performance of Silent Night, which has since become a favorite of Christmas carol singers around the world. 1943, Supreme Commander. As World War II raged, U.S. General Dwight D. Eisenhower was put in charge of Operation Overlord, a planned Allied invasion of territory occupied by Germany. After the war, Eisenhower went on to be elected U.S. President in 1953. In 1878, inventing the phonograph. U.S. inventor Thomas Edison filed an application to patent his latest invention, the phonograph. This new device was capable of recording sound onto metal cylinders and playing it back. Also on this day, in 1801, British inventor Richard Trevithick showcased his steam-powered vehicle, the first of its kind that could carry passengers. In 1893, Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Car Company, successfully tested his first engine invention. Lots of engines. In 1968, U.S. astronauts aboard Apollo 8 became the first humans to enter the moon's orbit. Lots of engines. Born this day, in 1868, Emanuel Lasker, German chess player. He was the world chess champion from 1894 to 1921. And in 1956, Anil Kapoor, Indian actor. He has starred in many TV series and movies, including Mr. India and Slumdog Millionaire. Next is December 25th, in the year 800, Imperial Coronation. Charlemagne was crowned the first Holy Roman Emperor. He united most of Western Europe under his rule, earning him the title Pater Europae, or Father of Europe. 1223, the first nativity scene. To celebrate the story of Christ's birth, St. Francis of Assisi set up the first nativity scene. It is now an annual tradition among many Christians. In 1914, the Christmas truce. In the midst of World War I, British and German soldiers called a brief truce, halting battle to meet in no man's land. Some even played soccer together before returning to the trenches. Also on this day in 336 CE, Christmas was celebrated on December 25th for the first time in recorded history. In 1776, George Washington crossed the Delaware River during the American Revolution, surprising his British opponents. And in 1831, the Great Jamaican Slave Revolt saw thousands of enslaved Jamaicans rebel in an unsuccessful attempt to gain their freedom. Born this day in 1642, Isaac Newton, English mathematician and physicist, he developed theories about gravity and motion. And in 1971, Justin Trudeau, Canadian Prime Minister. As leader of the Liberal Party, he was elected in 2015. Next is December 26th, 2020, Ancient Takeaway. Almost 2,000 years after the city of Pompeii in Italy was buried during a volcanic eruption, archaeologists revealed that they had uncovered a painted counter of an ancient street food shop, which sold fast food and drinks to hungry customers passing by. Wow. In 1966, Kwanzaa celebration. The first Kwanzaa, meaning first fruit in Swahili, began in Los Angeles, California. The 7-day annual festival is celebrated by Americans of African descent. And in 1906, feature film. At 60 minutes long, the story of the Kelly Gang about the exploits of 19th century outlaw Ned Kelly became the world's first narrative feature film. Today, only parts of the film survive. That movie's famous for that part where he aims the gun like at the audience and fires, and people like panicked because they had a gun pointed at them, you know. Also on this day, 1898, in France, scientists Marie and Pierre Curie declared they had discovered a new element, radium. In 1991, the Soviet of the Republics, which was part of the Soviet Union's lawmaking body, voted to end the Soviet Union. In 2004, an earthquake in Sumatra, Indonesia, caused a huge tsunami that devastated areas near the coast. And born this day in 1791, Charles Babbage, British engineer. A pioneer of early computing, he designed the first mechanical computer known as the difference engine, though he died before seeing his invention finished. Next is December 27th, 1722, Yongzhen's reign begins. The rule of Yongzheng Emperor, not Emperor Yongzheng, okay, began in China. He was one of the 3 great Qing dynasty emperors and helped reduce corruption in the country during his peaceful 13-year reign. 1966, huge pit find. The world's largest cave shaft, named the Cave of Swallows, was found in Aquismon, Mexico. It measures 1,214 feet in depth, deep enough for the Eiffel Tower to easily fit in it. And in 1904, off to Neverland, Scottish author J.M. Barrie's play Peter and Wendy about Peter Pan, a young boy from a place called Neverland who could fly, had its opening night. Also on this day in 1512, King Ferdinand II passed the Laws of Burgos to try to improve how Spanish settlers treated South American indigenous peoples. 1935, in Berlin, Germany, Regina Jonas became the first ever female rabbi. And in 2013, British adventurer Maria Leierstam finished cycling from the Antarctic coast to the South Pole, becoming the first person to do so. And born this day in 1995, Timothée Chalamet, U.S. actor. He rose to fame in the film Call Me By Your Name and has gone on to receive praise and award nominations for his work. I really liked him in Don't Look Up. I think that's my favorite role he's done so far. Next is December 28th. In 1895, the first picture show. French inventors, the Lumiere brothers, set up the first ever paid public screening of a film. The cinematograph, a portable device patented by them, projected 9 short films to an amazed audience. 1065 Medieval Church. Westminster Abbey in London, UK was consecrated. A renovated monastery, it has been the setting of many coronations and remains a burial place for famous figures, from warriors to poets. In 1912, riding the rails. An estimated 50,000 people showed up to see the first public streetcars, the Municipal Railway No. 1 in San Francisco, California. These vehicles are now part of the world's last manually operated cable car system. Also on this day in 1612, Neptune was seen for the first time by Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei, who mistook it for a star. In 1886, the first automatic dishwasher, which was turned by hand, was patented by U.S. inventor Josephine Cochrane. In 1973, the United States Endangered Species Act came into force to protect threatened species from becoming extinct. Born this day, 1922, Stan Lee, U.S. comic book publisher. He co-created the superheroes Spider-Man, the X-Men, and many more. 1964, Denzel Washington, Black American actor. He has played the lead in many Hollywood thrillers and dramas. Next is December 29th, 2008, Worthy Winners. In the USA, the Canadian Montreal Canadiens beat the U.S. Florida Panthers, becoming the first ice hockey team in NHL history to win 3,000 regular season games. 1933, Dynamic Duo. When Flying Down to Rio was released, it featured Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers dancing together for the first time. The pair went on to star in some of the most glamorous Hollywood musicals of their time. And 1653, Master of his craft. Dutch painter Johannes Vermeer registered as a master painter. Much of his artistic training remains a mystery. He would later go on to paint the famous Girl with the Pearl Earring. Also on this day in 1860, built for the British Royal Navy, the mighty HMS Warrior was launched, one of the first armor-plated iron-hulled warships. In 1922, Canadian-American teenager Aloha Wanderwell set off to become the first woman to circle the globe in a Ford 1918 Model T. And in 1937, the Irish Free State was renamed Ireland with the adoption of a new constitution. Born this day, in 1766, Charles Mackintosh, Scottish inventor. He's known for inventing waterproof fabric, and the Mackintosh raincoat is named after him. In 1981, Shizuka Arakawa, Japanese figure skater. She was the first Japanese skater to win an Olympic gold medal. On to our last pages of this book. Wow. Next is December 30th. In 1986, gas detectors. The British government announced plans to replace canaries in mines with electronic gas detectors. Canaries are more sensitive to poisonous gases than humans, so were taken down into mines as early warning systems. 534, the Code of Justinian. A set of laws written down at the request of Byzantine Emperor Justinian I came into effect throughout the Eastern Roman Empire. This law code forms the basis for many legal systems found in Europe today. And in 1927, the Ginza Line, the first underground rail line in Asia, began service in Tokyo, Japan. It proved so popular that people waited in line for 2 hours just to make a short journey. Also on this day in 1922, the Soviet Union was formed when Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and the Transcaucasus, which is Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, approved the treaty on the creation of the USSR. In 1924, U.S. astronomer Edwin Hubble shared proof that galaxies exist beyond our own Milky Way. Born this day in 1975, Tiger Woods, U.S. golfer. He spent more weeks as the number one golf player in the world than anyone else. In 1984, LeBron James, Black American basketball player, recognized as one of the greatest basketball players ever. He's had a long career, which includes NBA championship and Olympic wins. And lastly, we have December 31st. Let's start with 1853 with Dinosaur Dinner. In the belly of a half-finished iguanodon sculpture, its creator Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins held a dinner party for friends. The dinosaur was being built as a new attraction for Crystal Palace Park in London, UK. 1879, incandescent light. U.S. inventor Thomas Edison lit up his laboratory, as well as the surrounding area in Menlo Park, New Jersey. This was the first public demonstrations of his incandescent light bulb. And in 1907, the Times Square tradition. New Year's Eve celebrations held in Longacre Square, which is now called Times Square in New York City, featured the first ball drop, a ball descending down a flagpole to count down to the new year. The tradition continues to this day. Also on this day in 1935, the board game Monopoly was patented. It has since sold more than 250 million sets. In 1999, major celebrations were held all around the globe as the world marked the start of a new millennium. And in 2020, the UK formally left the European Union 4 years after the British public voted on whether to leave or remain. And born this day in 1948, Donna Summer, Black American singer and songwriter. Her 1977 single, I Feel Love, was a major hit in the disco genre and laid the foundations for electronic dance music. And in 1995, Gabby Douglas, Black American gymnast. She was the first Black American to become all-around individual Olympic gymnastics champion in 2012. And we have finished this book. Isn't that incredible? So thank you so much for watching, especially if you've watched all 12 videos in this series. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational.